In this video, we are going to talk more about the D23 Expo. We're going to talk about the Disney Cruise Line's latest ship, the Wish, and we're going to talk about MagicBand Plus, all coming up next.
Welcome to Orange Grove 55.
Thank you for coming to OG 55. We have a lot to discuss today, like I said, about the cruise line, MagicBand Plus. We're going to dive into the D23 Expo. But before we get into all that fun stuff, I want to introduce my fantastic panel today. My brothers, my friends, my colleagues, Mr. Vash Sky and George, Disney Family Man 23. We'll start off with Mr. Vash Sky, Dr. Dre, producer Dre, host of Freshly Squeezed. Dre, thank you as always, sir, for coming back on the channel.
Hey, the man with many hats is glad to be here. Like I said,
yes, sir.
The doctor is back and ready to operate. So hopefully you guys enjoy my my commentary. Anyway, if you want to interact with me directly, you can go ahead and do so right down there at Vash Sky for all the robust discussion, as Christine Wasteland McCarthy would put it. And if you want to see me, well, you can go ahead and see it right here on the channel you're watching right now at Orange Grove 55 at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info squeezed fresh right from the Grove.
Perfect. And down below, we got Mr. D23. Basically,
That's
Mr.
it.
D23. A family man. George, he is back. George, if you can let everyone at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. You can interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. And of course, you'll find me here on Orange Grove 55 with my segment Citrus Corner with all the sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Pay attention, it's Joe time.
Oh, you got it! Oh, no! Man.
You got some competition there, Mr. Baxter.
I do. OG, go ahead and do the honors, please. I do apologize.
Pay attention, it's Joe time.
There you go.
Literally, you guys were like an increment off. You almost had it simultaneously.
Wow.
That's great.
That is something, man.
That
That's
is really,
fantastic.
really cool.
Fantastic.
So George, last time we did the D23 Expo conversation a few days ago, it was me and Vash, and you weren't part of that conversation. So today I want to start with you. I want to start with, I know you have a lot of thoughts in regards to like that park panel announcement and the details and all this stuff. So I'm going to hand it over to you. Wherever you want to start with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So since I am going to be attending the D23 Expo, and I am a Gold family member with D23, and I also have the D23 app and the D23 Expo app, that I get a lot of notifications, especially as it comes closer to the event. And the one notification that I received was the breaking news for the Disney parks and experiences that's titled Wonderful World of Dreams. And usually at the Expo, they come up with a title that signifies of what the overall theme is going to be for the parks panel. Like one year they did, it was called Carousel of Projects. Was 1 year. And then this one's called Wonderful World of Dreams. So I thought, okay, so I got to dive into this because this is going to be my niche. This is what we've been waiting for. Maybe we can get a little bit of, some clues, some hints of what's going to go on. And so as I was going through the app, Mr. Vash Sky, if you wouldn't mind sharing, or OG, the notice. Yes, this is actually part of the app. So for the parks and experience panel, it's actually called A Boundless Future: Disney Parks Experiences and Products. This is going to be one of the final big panels of the expo. It's going to be held on the last day, which is Sunday, September 11th at 10:30 a.m., which it's always so far has been that time and day in Hall D23, which is the biggest stage that they have at the expo. Now, what I find kind of interesting with this is it says Disney Parks Experiences and Products Chairman Josh D'Amaro will take to the Hall D23 stage for A Boundless Future, Disney Parks and Experiences and Products, to share a look at new details of highly anticipated projects in development around the world. The fan favorite presentation is sure to feature see it here first moments and special surprises. So when I first read this, I thought immediately of how it's just specifying Josh. So Chapek has nothing really to do with this, which one can argue that Iger didn't really have anything to really do with the parks, when Chapek was chairman. But to the notion of what's going on right now, you would think that Chapek would want to have some aspects to this, especially of all the heat that he's been going through. But sure enough, so far it's only Josh. So that makes me wonder, are there certain things that are going to be announced that maybe Chapek wouldn't want to kind of touch right now and kind of leave it to D'Amaro to handle? Because maybe Josh can kind of rework the crowd and maybe put it in his own words of a way that Chapek may not be able to do, because maybe they can't fit it on the teleprompter. Who knows? I don't know. So,
that's an interesting theory. I am getting a little bit of an echo on your end, George. If you could lower your just a little bit. But that's an interesting theory, though, for sure. About the D'Amaro thing and Chapek kind of being absent from that. Now, like you said, Bob Iger, I don't really believe he really has been too much involved with like the park stuff. I think that one time he was involved with the Galaxy's Edge. We're not building one, we're building two. I think that's the only thing I remember from the parks. But Dre, what are your overall thoughts? I mean, it's an interesting theory that like maybe Chapek is kind of standing back because there's going to be some controversial announcements, or maybe there's stuff that isn't too impressive, So like kind of like how Chapek didn't show up to the Destination D23 thing back in November because it really was a nothing burger for the most part.
And that's kind of my thought process surrounding it. I mean, like you said, it was pretty rare for the actual CEO to show up to any of these parks presentations. I remember Jace Rasulo taking the stage, Tom Staggs taking the stage, and Chapek taking the stage. So it usually is done by the chairman of the Parks Experiences or Products Division or the Disney Parks and Resorts Division. It's not really, you don't really see that much input unless there's something big. Now, that could still be the case, and they keep that a surprise, and they have Chapek come out just for that instance to debut that big thing. From what I understand, I don't believe Iger was listed on any of the event schedules leading up to the announcement of Galaxy's Edge. I could be wrong.
No, he wasn't. And actually, that wasn't even during the parks presentation. Iger announced that at the end of it was the live action panel, I believe.
Oh, that's right.
You're right about that, George. So that's an interesting point there. So
you never know.
You never know.
Curveballs like that, we would never know. We'd never see it coming.
Yeah, we never see it coming. So
I'm sorry. No. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I'm just saying that just because Chapek isn't listed doesn't mean that he can't make other, appearances, not only, I guess, at this panel, but others, in conjunction with other big announcements. It could be, hey, the live action panel's going on. They end with Marvel, and he comes out and says, hey, you know what? We're not just building one Avengers e-ticket, we're building two. That could happen, right?
Well,
so
it's funny that you actually mentioned that, because that was going to be my next portion that you fellas were talking about on the website. They were mentioning about part of the showroom floor as part of this is what's going to showcase of the Wonderful World of Dreams is going to be the presentation that's going to be on the Expo showroom floor. And what's funny is when the media got into the showroom floor to get firsthand glimpse of anything new, we were back in the Expo of 2019. We were in the queue line just to enter the building, and they had already announced the Moana themed walkthrough that's going to be part of Epcot. So that was already uploaded on Mice Chat, Chip and Company, WDW News. That was all uploaded before the expo even started because all the media outlets were already in the building.
Correct.
So depending on what's going to be within that showroom floor, that may also be the same intake of what's going to happen at this expo. Because normally with the parks division, with the expo showroom floor, is they usually have one big gigantic model. One year it was Pandora. The other year was Galaxy's Edge. And then the
Right.
last one was the transformation of Epcot. So no one really knows what the big thing is going to be this year, or if there's even really going to be one. But I actually had a theory of that.
Sure.
And you guys touched upon it on your last video talking about it. When they mentioned about Frozen experiences,
Okay.
and they used the term plural, Frozen experiences. Now, we already know Disneyland Paris, Hong Kong, they're in the midst of getting these as we speak.
Right.
And we know how Disney is notorious about making multiples of everything. It saves on cost, it saves on time, and it's effective any other way, especially because right now with WDI, there's not a lot of project groups going on right now because of the cuts of Imagineers, unfortunately. So as you had mentioned, Dre, about saying about an Avengers, not just one, but two, but I'm actually thinking if Chapek might come out and say, we're not building 2 Frozens, we're building 3.
That would be interesting. So where would the third one be?
Disneyland.
Disneyland.
That's
what he's saying.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
One at Hong Kong, one at Paris, and then one at Anaheim.
Oh, I see what he's saying. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I have a feeling that Frozen thing, I think they're going to announce it. And with Scott Trowbridge tweeting out that stuff about the motorboat cruise area and his field trip to Iceland, I think like a month before the tweet, it's the stars are aligned for that Frozen attraction.
So the model that I think that's going to be there, I think it's going to be the Frozen.
Also, too, to allude to a future conversation that we will have in this video, the Frozen dinner show just premiered on the Wish, getting great reviews. Kind of one of the things that people are unanimously in agreement over. That show is actually done really, really well, and so people are still receptive to Frozen IP or Frozen, attractions and so forth. So who knows? It'd be one more thing to kind of add to a park, and like you said, wouldn't require that much development in terms of the size of teams and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really what I think. I think it's one of those things where I think they're going to try to surprise us with something. It's not going to be a whole lot where it's going to be like a slate of projects where it's going to be one after the other. I think they're going to have a handful of projects, just enough just to make the fans happy and have us walk out to know that the future is bright with the Walt Disney Company, especially what's going on right now. And I think also to really grasp people, I think without a doubt, I could say 10 out of 10 that we are going to get the official opening date for Tron. If we get nothing else for Walt Disney World.
Oh, for sure. I think that's you could pretty much put that on the list of for sure, I would think, because we would be close enough to where they would have a pretty good idea of when it's actually going to premiere. So opening date, I think, is pretty solid. But there are a whole lot of open questions here. I think we talked about OG. I mean, you could have maybe an announcement of things back on the slate. For instance, the Avengers E-ticket. You could have, whatever's going to have. I would say it's a pretty for sure thing, but whatever's going to occur in the treehouse over there at Disneyland. Some people, there's a lot of smoke surrounding Tomorrowland. I would think it'd be pretty unusual for there not to be at least some fire, but again, could get something there. It's going to be a very interesting expo, and should really suggest what might be in store, not just for the parks division, but what direction they might be heading. Yeah,
absolutely. And actually, if you could bring up that description one more time,
sure.
That it's that at the end, I find this very interesting. The fan favorite presentation is sure to feature see it here first moments, which they've never used that term before. They've always used special surprises, but the way that they put see it here first moments, which means that everything that's being mentioned now through rumors or through media outlets, that Disney is kind of putting it in their own way, that whatever you're hearing through third-party websites or media, what have you, you're going to hear something brand new here first, straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. I find that quite interesting of how they worded that.
Every single expo, they bring
Right.
something out that nobody was expecting. As Sean from Ranking the Mouse actually astutely pointed out. And I believe it, George. I think there's going to be something here that nobody had sources on, nobody was reporting on. Maybe some people knew, but didn't actually come forward with it until this Parks presentation. So, like I said, this is definitely something that we want to keep an eye on because I think it's going to say a lot. Both what they announce, both what they don't announce, and from what they announce, what the direction is going to going forward. Is it just going to be a bunch of repeats? Are they going to have maybe new stuff? Is it going to be maybe stuff that they were developing and now it's back on? It's going to be very interesting.
Yep.
Well,
and
and
I
another
will definitely be out there for the expo. I'll be on location and definitely hit you guys with as much information as I can give you for the Orange Grove 55 channel.
We're here to take the
Perfect.
punches. Go ahead, OJ.
Perfect. Well, I was going to say too, it might even be like, because we're all kind of expecting like, is it kind of like an all or nothing situation when it comes to Tomorrowland? Like it's either going to get a whole renovated land announcement or nothing. It might even be a piecemeal thing. We might just get the people movers coming back and that's it. And nothing else. They're not going to touch the rest of it. They're just going to do the people mover, you know? Or maybe it'll just be, we're getting a new, I don't know, some new coaster, you know, in Tomorrowland or something.
But if you actually think about it, the one expo year when they made that the Avengers symbol right next to Mission Breakout and they kind of hinted something was going to go on, they didn't announce anything else. That
Right.
was it. They only announced that and they said there's going to be more coming. So I wonder if it's going to be something like that aspect where they kind of give us a teaser of something and then by the next expo, it'll be more
Wasn't
fleshed
it
out.
something like, if I remember correctly, wasn't it something like, you know, whatever we do with regarding Marvel is going to feature your favorite characters, featuring Captain America and Spider-Man?
Yes.
Right.
That was the
That's
same
all,
thing?
That's all they mentioned. They mentioned nothing of the title of Avengers Campus. They mentioned nothing as far as the attractions or the restaurants. That all came at the next expo, which was 2 years later.
Right. That's true.
And
They didn't announce it. They just said more Marvel is coming. They announced, they said Spider-Man and Avengers, I think, but they didn't give us any detail outside of that.
Yeah.
And that was in 2017. 2 years went by. Then we got the name Avengers Campus and the whole artwork thing and all that. So that's interesting, George.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fascinating. I remember, I think I attended the expo where they said something like, "Oh, like we want to bring like unique experiences back. What if you could dine inside the Tahitian Terrace again, or something like this?" And it was like, "Whoa, that's kind of crazy." Never heard anything from there past that point. So, sometimes they throw you curveballs, other times they throw you duds. It's something's going to happen. It's going to be very, very interesting, and not just from the D23 Expo, like the parks panel, but even on the studio side of things too. Maybe we might get them officially launching that ad based tier that they're going to have for Disney Plus, right? In order to shore up subscriptions, and that should be right in line with that, that first quarter of 2023, which they like so much.
And I think honestly, that's where this expo is going to lead. It's going to be a lot of teasers, a lot of, as you mentioned, Dre, hit or miss moments, because this is the whole expo is going to be themed to the 100 years of the Walt Disney Company and moving forward. So I think that's where they're going to kind of use that theme to say, okay, we got stuff on the horizon, but we're not going to tell you about it yet because it's going to last all the way in through the next 100 years. And based on how Disney builds, that's exactly what it's going to be, the next 100 years.
Basically, yeah.
I hope they deliver on that 100th anniversary. I mean, that is such a huge milestone.
Yeah.
They got to go all out with that. I want to see every arm of the company in just full celebration mode.
I would love to see part of the expo floor, just one section just dedicated to Walt. That's it. Nothing but Walt.
Mm-hmm.
I would love that.
Yeah, me too. That'd be cool. I just want to see everything running on full steam ahead. And the Disney Plus getting a ton of new stuff, the parks getting a ton of new stuff. all kinds of stuff to celebrate 100 years. And we'll see. It's hard right now because they are still kind of recovering from the pandy. I mean, the parks are still recovering. The theaters are still recovering. It's not easy to like Drea said many times on the show, to just pour money into this stuff right now. I hope they do as much as they can, though,
I hope
because
so.
it's important, I think.
The 50th was kind of universally panned, right? It was very kind of universally seen as underwhelming. So I mean, I still hold true to this kind of philosophy that you could really make up or make good for doing, maybe some of the things that you were going to do for the 50th, rebranding them for the 100th. I mean, you could really do something not only in Walt Disney World, but do something at Disneyland. We're already getting, from what we understand, a new fireworks show, but it could include so much more. And I really do, to your point, OG, I really do hope they do that. Hopefully they'll be in a financially secure position in order to do so. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully. Now, George, you mentioned you want to pull up the Chip and Company website, right?
Correct. Yes.
You wanted to discuss. Okay, now, Dre, do you have that by any chance? Oh, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Let me go ahead and get this going here.
So while you're getting, the reason why I thought to bring this up for that is to talk about the elephant in the room, so to speak.
Okay.
So, because it has to be talked about, it's part because they had mentioned this as being part of. I apologize, folks. There's my daily train, but I have to talk about this because this is probably going to be incorporated into the expo. But my concern is how much of it, and we've talked about this many times before on the channel, day in, day out. We've beaten this thing to death, and it's like, but we still didn't get no answers. And there's a portion of it. Let me see where it's at here. Oh, here it is. Okay, it's in that first paragraph. Go up a little bit. Okay, it's right where it says, third line down. There will be the behind-the-scenes glimpses of Tiana's Bayou adventure. Now, I find that kind of fascinating because ever since that they announced this thing back in 2020, everything has been titled Behind the Scenes. And what we are getting as behind the scenes is the history origin of New Orleans and the groups of people that are involved with the ride, but we have yet to see anything of the ride itself.
Right.
So my question is, just because that they're mentioning a behind the scenes look, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be of the ride. See, if they would have used the term like a sneak peek, or we're going to show you a piece of the ride of what we're working with, they're using the term again, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really give me much hope unless I actually physically see it with my own eyes. But reading this doesn't give me full clarification that it's still a green light. I'm sorry.
Well, you brought up a great point, and George, that's actually immediately where my brain went with this as well. When I saw behind the scenes, I'm thinking kind of what we got before, right? Like the people behind the project, their inspiration for this, that, and the other. Like that's what I kind of envision when I hear like behind the scenes. It's kind of almost like the best way I can describe it would be like, when Star Wars, when Lucasfilm, they can like when they, like early on, like in 2015, 2016, 2017, they used to do like these like sizzle reels. Like they wouldn't release like a full blown trailer. They'd give you a sizzle reel, which is very, very beautifully edited behind the scenes stuff. But you'll see the creatures, you'll see Daisy Ridley, or you'll see, right? But it was never any actual footage of the movie. It was all this behind the scenes. Look at J.J. Abrams standing behind the camera kind of stuff. When I hear behind the scenes, I think of that when it comes to this. That's the kind of stuff I'm thinking of. I'm not thinking of actual footage of anything of kind of substance, unfortunately, which kind of is disappointing in my opinion. And I hope we're wrong. I want to see, what's the alligator's name? Lewis. I want to see like a big animatronic of him. I want to see some stuff of the actual ride, but that verbiage in the description doesn't bode well. It really doesn't.
it's a little bit like you're seeing the kitchen, but not necessarily the food you're going to eat. You know,
Right,
not the
totally.
dishes, right? And it's like, it's a little bit like, okay. I mean, that's cool. You know, that could be cool in its own way, but you know, like I said on this show before, it's you know, I know we're getting the ride. I know what it's called now, but I've not seen much substance of what we're getting, and I think that's
Right.
what a lot of people are kind of wanting. Even the people who, you know, who want to see it themselves, the people who are really fans of this in a big way, they want to go ahead and see this, and I agree. I mean, I want to see it. I mean, this is going to replace you know, a huge kind of beloved attraction. People will kind of want to be, you know, they want to have a solid look at this thing to judge it for themselves, you know, and
Right.
we've just gotten a lot of nothing. And you know, now that you bring this up, George, it does sound like this is what that's going to be. It's going to be, like you said, the sizzle reel of what we're supposed to
Right.
get, but not necessarily what we're supposed to get.
Right. No, 100%.
And-
It's totally the sizzle reel, you know, thing that they're going to do.
And I bring that up because, again, as you had mentioned, Dre, this is going to replace a popular attraction. It is what it is. I'm sorry, folks, whether you agree with the background story of this attraction, it's popular. It has an over 90+ minute wait every day during the parks. People love riding it. And I just have to mention that it is still being talked about. Splash Mountain is still in the conversation, whether it's negative or positive. And I have to actually say, and this is the God's almighty truth, I actually witnessed a positive upbringing of Splash Mountain recently. Kelly Ripa has a game show called Generation Gap, and it's where she has groups of families of two, one from an older generation and one from a younger generation. And she asks them questions about something that the older generation wouldn't know about today's generation and vice versa. So there was a grandfather and his granddaughter on, and she talks to them of their background and, you know, where they come from and how they got where they were and what have you. And the older gentleman, African-American older man, by the name of J.D. Hall. And he said to Kelly and the audience, "You may recognize my voice, but you may not really recall where you hear it." And he did a voice and tried to see if anyone could guess it. And again, people kind of heard it, and you kind of hear the gasp in the audience because they recognized it. And he had said that he is the voice for Brer Fox in the Splash Mountain attraction. And he was proud of it. He wasn't hesitant. He just came right out in public television saying of something that he had accomplished in his life that he was very proud of, and the audience applauded him for it. And I actually have a photo of some of the actors who portrayed the characters, and there's J.D. Hall up at the top, who did the voice of Brer Fox. Then you have Nick Stewart, who did Brer Bear, and then Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's James Avery, who did the voice of Brer Frog. And I have to bring this up, not for controversial, but it's almost an insult to these men because they portrayed these characters for families to enjoy at the most magical, happiest place on earth. So to say that this never happened, nor have they did these voices, it's an insult to them. It's an insult to their work. They put a lot of heart into these characters, and I think they should be recognized for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's fair. That's absolutely fair. It's something that it unfortunately kind of people overlook, right? James Basket, he starred in Song of the South. He was, I believe, and Drake, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't he the first African American to get nominated or win the Oscar? I don't remember.
He was the first male. Oh, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Technology, folks. I do apologize. He was the first one to receive an honorary Oscar from the Academy. So, you know, it's...
And he was the first African-American male. Hattie McDaniels was the first African-American for Gone with the Wind.
Right.
Correct?
Yes.
So.
If I'm remembering correctly. But these were, huge figures at their time, and James Baskett's portrayal, many people felt it was endearing. Now, again, some people have their disagreements with it, but James Baskett was very proud of the role. And I think these men as well were very proud of the roles that they had voicing these characters for this attraction. So, and J.D. Hall sounds like he was very proud of that as well. And I do agree with you. I mean, that's kind of the nuance of some of this stuff going on right now. Even going into the attraction itself, right? Splash Mountain is a take on really kind of African folktales that slaves brought with them when transported to the South, and they were kind of readapted to that Southern context. But these are really kind of African folktales that are told, and these are African Americans portraying these characters as represented in Splash Mountain. And so when I think about an attraction like Tiana's Bayou Adventure based on Princess and the Frog replacing Splash Mountain, I think, well, that has its origins as a European fairy tale. This is an actual African folktale that is now going to be lost in order to make way for Tiana's. And honestly, I'm kind of one of the opinion that you can have both if you really want. You can have both Princess and the Frog and Splash Mountain. Now, that might not be the direction that they're going to, and that's fine. But just understand, I think the history of some of these things, the history of this of these attractions and so forth, I think is important. Likewise, it's just in a similar way that people have problems with it. There's also some things worth remembering as well.
No, 100%, Dre. And that gets lost, I think, in the conversation. And we're not saying that the film is not, culturally outdated for today's audience. We're not saying that. We're not trying to apologize for anything that's problematic or anything like that. All we're saying is, look at it from the context of there's more to this puzzle than just the few things that we hear. There was a lot of great talent involved in that movie, and the voice work that JD Hall and what have you are very proud of and stuff like that. And James Baskett. And I don't think that we should completely forget that amazing talent just because of a cultural shift today. I think that we can sort of respect the talent while also saying, hey, you know what? Maybe the art, the movie or whatever was of a certain era, and it's not appropriate for today, but we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater and forget everything about the movie and all those accomplishments from James Baskett and JD Hall and everything. Throw those out too. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that's right. I think they should be remembered and honored for their contributions to not just the film and the ride, but just overall Disney history.
And there might be an example of them going that route, not maybe with Splash Mountain, but for another attraction featured at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom. OG, go ahead and share my screen one more time here. This was interesting. This is from that park place right here. And obviously the original story, as relayed by Blog Mickey, suggests that there's been a little bit of a rebranding going on. And we see this in the queue of Peter Pan. Now, Peter Pan... great attraction, as I was relaying with Sean, Ranky the Mouse. We had top 5 50, original opening day attractions and so forth. We ranked them. Peter Pan is definitely high on the list, and high on the list for a lot of other people, but some people have problems with it, specifically the Native American representation in that attraction itself. And so a lot of people theorize that, well, maybe these animatronic figures or these figures will be removed. Well, it looks like they might not be, because as we can see in the queue here, they've changed it from the previous terminology of Indian Village to now Neverland Tribe. Now that's interesting because, with Splash Mountain, they're outright removing that attraction in order to make way for Princess and the Frog. But here, looks like they've rebranded the Native Americans featured in this attraction, suggesting that, and this is part of the queue, mind you, suggesting that the representation of Native Americans inside the ride won't actually be touched. It's a fascinating thing here. And it kind of keys off on what we've been talking about here. George, OG, what do you think about this?
No, it is interesting because I would have thought my gut would have told me they're just going to remove it. They're not going to try to like rebrand it or anything like that. They're just going to outright remove it. The painting, whatever. I've never been on the Walt Disney World version of Peter Pan's Flight, so they do have the animatronics. I'm assuming of. Mm-hmm. I would assume they would. I would have thought they would have removed those. Apparently not. Apparently they're kind of rebranding it into a Neverland tribe. It's actually kind of a creative way to kind of keep what's in there, but sort of remove like the problematic elements, that people might find offensive. And I think that's actually kind of a very fair compromise, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. It's basically what they do on Disney Plus. Like before you put on any of those films that may have quote unquote sensitivity moments that may offend certain people, they actually put in a disclaimer at the beginning of the film, and it kind of rubber stamps it, so to speak. So it kind of covers Disney's butt to say, hey, we recognize this, but it's still part of the movie. It's still a great movie, but we do recognize that, today's generation may not appreciate of what it was back in the day. So this kind of variation could be how that they're kind of rubber stamping it within the parks. How do you go about, instead of it being about a movie, how do you do that with an actual physical attraction? Well, this could be the way to go. And it makes me wonder too, that if they would have thought about this way before, instead of rushing Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and maybe have something else with the Princess and the Frog. But as Dre had mentioned, to not necessarily replace Splash Mountain with Princess and the Frog, just to fill the gap of saying, okay, we have to get rid of this, so let's put this in. Maybe they should have just kind of reimagined the story of Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, and Brer Bear, kept the Splash Mountain theme to it, and then placed Princess and the Frog somewhere else where it would actually make sense, especially in Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
And Disney, I'm going to have to give credit to Disney Glimpses for that idea. I mean, he was kind of the first one to relay that kind of idea where it's like, hey, instead of associating these characters with just Song of the South, associate them with something else that's a little bit more positive or a little bit more inclusive or whatever. You could have shorts for Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, and Brer Bear on Disney Plus or something, or some other outlet that people could associate those characters with that directly. And that way it kind of, further removes it from the kind of the Song of the South kind of association, for lack of a better term. So it's kind of those things. And WDW Pro was the writer of the article featuring this kind of update. And I thought he said it very kind of interesting here. I'll go ahead and I'll read this section of it. I believe it's the third paragraph here. You may not think this is a big deal. You may even think that this is morally reprehensible decision on the part of Disney. Whatever the case is for you, I'm recognizing it as yet another signal that the company has begun to moderate. 1 year ago, this would have been a totally different decision. Today, Disney is not only keeping the characters for Peter Pan, but they're also giving them a new title. It's an interesting idea, like you said earlier, OG, do we necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater? Can we kind of delineate these things in kind of a more nuanced way in order for that, you don't offend anybody, right? You don't have maybe a stereotypical representation or use, language that might offend some people, but still keep kind of the essence of why they were represented in the first place. Not to make fun of anybody, but to give a proper representation of different indigenous peoples or different marginalized groups. For example, the Native Americans in Rivers of America, right? I think that representation of them is extremely well done, both at Walt Disney World and Disneyland. I don't want them removed just because the company is maybe antsy about representing Native Americans in the parks. I want them to actually be preserved. And so, if this is, if things like this are a way to do that, I would prefer it, to be quite honest with you. But maybe I'm in the minority in that position.
Well, I agree. I think what Walt Disney World, WDW Pro said in that article is spot on. This would have been a completely different situation 3, 4, 5 years ago. And like I said earlier, like they would have just removed it. And there's been rumors of that for years, both here at Disneyland and in Florida. They're going to remove that stuff from both rides. And it doesn't look like they're going to do that. It looks like they're going to kind of go down this route of like reimagining it into the Neverland tribe. And I don't know. I think it's a cool compromise. I really, really do. And it is a very moderate approach to this stuff. And this might be the template going forward. This might be the way they kind of do things going forward. So it's interesting. It's very, very interesting.
It definitely suggests something is changing internally within the company. And we'll see that, I think, reflected in very weird ways. And I think WDW Pro might have something here. I can't say definitively, but it definitely is a very interesting compromise. Like you said, OG, and George, I think they would have removed this had it been a few years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think WDW Pro was right. To have them kind of do this kind of rebranding in order to maybe keep some of these characters or keep some of these things and have them be associated differently. I think it's a decent change here. I think it's a decent way to go about these issues.
100%. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk some MagicBand Plus. MagicBand Plus. You know what? Here, I'll get us all scanned in here.
Thank you. I do appreciate that.
This is interesting. This whole conversation about Magic Bands. I've said for a long time that I've always wanted a Magic Band. Like I've always wanted them to come here to California. But I've been seeing a lot of this Magic Band Plus stuff. Like you can wave at the statues at Walt Disney World or whatever. Yeah, I know, right? Probably didn't do that. Yeah.
Oh Jesus! Oh man!
Family show.
Just so you know, OG was imitating a fist pump.
Yes, it was a fist bump. It was just a little low. It was a fist bump right there, right? But yes, the waving thing. I know what you're talking about.
Really, yeah. From what I understand, it doesn't really work, or not really. Doesn't really work that well. They got a lot of this gimmicky stuff, like in Galaxy's Edge, like what do they call them, Batu hunters or something with the bands.
Yeah, the bounty hunter game.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I don't know, man. I'm just like, for me, the Magic Band's kind of brilliance is in the simplicity of it, of like the efficiency of it, of like it's like your room key, it's your passport, it's your credit card, everything in here, and you just swipe it, right?
It's kind of a functional tool for guests.
Right. Yeah. The functionality of it, the efficiency of it, that's the beauty of the Magic Band. Once they start adding on the gimmicks,
that's it. It's a gimmick. That was the word I was going to use. It's an exact gimmick. And this is actually because I've owned many Magic Bands. And as you had mentioned, OG, that's what I love about it. It was so cool just to have like a wristband to the magic, if you will. Like, as you said, it's your park ticket, it's your credit card, it's your room key. But when you add features of sound effects and flashes and lights and activates this and turns this on, it's like it loses its appeal of why they even made them in the first place. And then they jack up the price because of these new features.
It cheapens it. I don't know. It just feels cheap when they do that stuff. I mean, just make it a tool to use for convenience. And if Disney wants to go the route of like, the Galaxy's Edge games or the statue thing, then do it through like the app or something, like, and that can be like an app game. But on the band, I don't know. Like, the band should be a functionality thing, in my opinion. Everything else seems gimmicky.
Yeah, unless you can integrate it in a way that really feels substantial, And I know that park operators, I know they're looking for the next kind of Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom kind of game, because from what I understand, Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom did enough capacity for like a kind of a small ride, like on its own, and you had that many people kind of participating in doing that game. So I understand there's what should I say, a desire for Disney to go ahead and include some of these games in their parks and stuff like that, and these interactive features that's featured with the Magic Band Plus. But it's like it's kind of how you integrate them is kind of the real key there. And I just don't think even like the Bounty Hunter game, as kind of good as it maybe sounded on paper or in a press release, right? I've seen the kind of implementation of it. Kind of looked a little fetch questy, go here, scan this, go there. It didn't really seem that substantial, and there definitely wasn't any rewards by the end of it that were, frankly, of any value. And it's I don't know. I'm excited of the future, but as it stands right now with MagicBand Plus, I don't know. I'm gonna have to wait on this one. What do you think, George?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like comparing the two. Like when I first got introduced to the Magic Bands to now, this was during a time where you couldn't get access of your ticket on your phone or through an app. So it was either through like a paper or a plastic card, or you have everything transferred onto the MagicBand. And that's what made it so cool. It was like, oh, I don't have to pull out my wallet. I don't have to, try to locate my ticket if it gets damaged, if it gets lost. I have everything right on my wrist. Now with the technology where they add your annual pass or your Magic Key or your regular park ticket on the app on your phone, it seems like with this move, it's like they're kind of moving backwards, but trying to move forwards, if that makes sense. It's like they're updating an older type of software within the MagicBand. So that's where they're moving forward, but they're moving back to then rely on to say, okay, well, here's what we had before. You can get them on your iPhone or your smartphone or what have you. So that's where it's like, it kind of depletes the notion of, what it's all about. I really don't have an appeal to it. Like I saw people, they sold out within minutes, especially the partner statue one. It was sold out within minutes. And I'm like, I get it in a way, but I don't.
Well, are those the bands we're getting here at Disneyland? Probably, right?
Yes. Yeah, we're getting the. From what I understand, the Disneyland versions went on sale accidentally before the launch date of the actual Magic.
They put them on the show.
Right. So we know we're definitely getting these, and I think it was Bricky from Adventures in Design who said that the likelihood is probably we're going to get these other kind of ancillary features like the Bounty Hunter game that's featured in Galaxy's Edge, the kind of glow with the show aspect of it, right, where you can put your band up and it lights up in sync with the various celebrations. Okay, we're getting those features and not maybe the whole shebang that Walt Disney World currently enjoys, where you can use it as your room key, your park access, and all that kind of stuff, which people were really hoping for, and even I was very skeptical of.
Oh, we're not going to get that stuff?
I've not seen any evidence to suggest that we're going to get those other features, because I haven't seen the portals that you would use for stuff like that. Right. Now I understand there is integration on the machines outside the various attractions that use Lightning Link, for instance. Right, they are set up to do that, but I've not seen any other implementation of this technology.
That would be terrible. Like I was just saying, like the efficiency, the real world stuff, like it's your credit card, it's your annual pass, it's your room key. That's the stuff that appeals to me. And if it's just going to be a band where you glow with the show and stuff, I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm not spending $30 on that. I'm good.
That's it. And some of these are like $45. And the rollout has been not the best. If you go ahead and share my screen here. So imagine this. Imagine you paid anywhere between $35, $45 for this thing, right? And now you're told that you can't necessarily use these new features that you paid for because you can't update your MagicBand. It's now out of date because it's not charged enough in order to update it. And there's kind of a proprietary kind of cable system that they have here with these chargers. If I can go ahead and do this right there. So that's the kind of the USB-A type side, right? But if you look at the other end, there's this kind of, there's this kind of docking system that you have to use for these, as pretty much these watches kind of implore, right? I would have liked to see some kind of standard Q wireless charging type system or standard Qi wireless charging system for this. But no, they're going with this kind of proprietary cable, which I guess they're selling as well. So awesome. But yeah, I mean, there was no way in which to charge these in order to get them up to the 60% charging that you had to have for them in order to get the update in order to start using them. So this is Adam the Woo's video on his Daily Woo channel, and he had to go back to his car, as you can see, in order to get a charger, in order to charge this enough, and then actually use it in the park that day. So again, not the best implementation and execution of this kind of whole thing. One thing that could have been done is anybody who purchases it, maybe have like a station in which a cast member kind of receives it, sets it aside just for you, charges it, and that way you can return to that shop or store within like an hour or so, just to give it, just to get it up to snuff here. But apparently they didn't have that on day one, and so I don't know, it's typical Disney, right? It's day one, not everything works properly.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, I heard that too. I heard they shipped them and they weren't really fully charged, so people were getting them, and I think now people are aware of that. So now they're, well, at least the Diz community, the people like us who are like, live, eat, and breathe this
but
stuff
again,
now.
it's
Like,
like another extra thing you have to focus on. It's like before you could have just put your MagicBand on and you go. You didn't have to worry about, is this charged? Is this at what percentage? It's like, it's just another added stress topic just to add on to your list of a day at Disney.
We did, back here at home and at Disneyland, right? They recently added mobile order to Rancho del Zocalo, the famous Mexican restaurant here in Frontierland, right? And historically, there were about 4 windows in which you can receive and order food from, but now they're going to reduce that down to 2 because the other 2 are going to be dedicated to mobile order, which, as I believe MiceChat just recently went there, kind of tried to experience that themselves, and there was like a 30-minute interval between reservation slot, like ordering slots, right? And they didn't encounter anybody actually picking up food in those 30 minutes, while the actual standby is now out the door. Again, it's one of those things where now you have to worry about having your phone charged and having to go through these kind of digital systems, right? And then you add on this MagicBand Plus. Now you have to have this updated. Now you have to have this charged. It's just getting to be a little bit, you're getting away from the core experience. I think that people are actually paying good money in order to see.
Simplicity is king. It really is. Simplicity is king. And you don't want and that's why, I don't know. I think that maybe Disneyland had the right idea when they were kind of going more like phone based, initially with everything on the phone. Everyone's got a phone. All you got to do is download the app and you're good to go. And that might be actually the best route, even for Florida. Get rid of the bands and just have everyone use your phone and have everything in here.
Yep.
And you can play the games on here. You can do everything. And then
that's what it's like. That's where it's like they're trying to move forward, but they're moving backward. They're using a form of technology that's already been there. And now that you have your phone, it's like what's really the point?
The bands were all. The idea was not everybody had a smartphone back in the time that they were introduced. So this was kind of the kind of in between zone in order to get
Made sense.
Right. But now, like you said, OG, we now all have phones. And we all have phones with NFC chips in them that can make direct contact and do things, and interact with certain terminals and so forth to bring some of these technologies to reality. So it's like, do we necessarily need the bands anymore? I guess the glow with the show and partners or 50th statues aspect of it, I guess that's unique. But again, you could also integrate them on the phones as well. But you can't necessarily sell a new product with that. And you know how Parks Experiences and Products loves its products. So that's kind of the other thing there. Apparently the kids do like it. So there's that going for it.
I wonder why they didn't partner up, because Disney has a history with Apple.
Yes.
I know Bob Iger was on that board for a long time, and the two companies have a really good working relationship. I'm surprised Disney didn't reach out to Apple about designing the MagicBand and kind of partnering with them in regards to that. Maybe the bands would have been too expensive then or something.
If you partner up with an established retailer of smartwatches, right? Whether it be Samsung or Apple, right? You can't necessarily sell that or monetize it in the same way that you can when you sell a physical product. And you have all the band variations and stuff now. They like that revenue stream. They like that revenue source. I think this is just a way to extend that a little bit further, but how viable it'll actually be in the long term, I don't know. It's like you said, OG, it seems a little bit gimmicky to me. And here's the thing. A big aspect of this is with the integration with the statues for the 50th. How long are those actually going to be there? That's the other question here. They could just be here for the run of the 50th, or they could have found a permanent home in Walt Disney World as part of this MagicBand Plus experience. That's another thing to watch out for here.
Oh, that's interesting. What if they're permanent? That's interesting.
What if they're permanent?
Yeah, and in regard to the gimmick thing, we've had our share of gimmicks out here in Anaheim. I don't know if you guys remember, like the glow with the show ears for World of Color and stuff like that. It's
guilty. I was one. I bought a pair.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's like, do they even sell those anymore? I mean, that
they
died
do not.
fast.
Right, and I guess Steve Davison and some other people were kind of big champions of them because they did have some pretty interesting integration when it came to the shows that featured them. If you've ever seen, I don't know if people can find it out there, but on YouTube there's a couple of recordings of these shows when they gave out, I believe these hats to these glow with the show ears to, I believe, annual pass holders is who they gave them out to. And, everybody wore them when seeing like Fantasmic or World of Color. And it was pretty dazzling, but you needed you needed a lot of people to wear them in order to get that kind of effect. And they just didn't take off. Apparently there was some pricing issue. I think Steve Davison himself kind of argued that they were maybe a little bit too expensive for a high adoption rate. And because
then
of
it
that,
also
they kind
came
of
to the
died in
argument that you had to actually be looking at other people's heads to see the effect when you want to be focused on the show.
Right. No, I know.
Yes, and
it's a distraction. It becomes a distraction thing.
The wearer didn't gain the benefit. That's the other thing. So you pay for this thing, and it's a benefit to everybody else, but not necessarily yourself. So that was the other, caveat to that. Which in this way, it is. I mean, if you want to have your hand up the whole time, it does solve that issue. But again, is that the best integration of these things? I think not.
No. Yeah, I mean, look, when the Magic Bands come to Anaheim, if they have the functionality stuff, I'll get it. I will absolutely get it. I can put my Magic Key, my credit card, all that. I will absolutely get it. But if it's like all the gimmicks and it's completely devoid of all the actual like real use stuff, I won't buy it. I won't spend the money on it.
You go ahead and share my screen there, OG, and give a visual of what this was kind of like here. You can see how you can see the design, the glow of the show ears, and I believe they glowed. It looks like on both sides, and you can see how they could potentially integrate with the shows that featured them, World of Color and Fantasmic. And some of these things were dazzling. They were. But it's just, you need the high adoption rate in order to get this effect off. So, it's unfortunate. It really is. And I don't know. I mean, maybe this solves some issues, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be something that's sought after for this specific feature either. I think like you, OG, I think a lot of people look at these kind of things and they're looking for functionality. I think they're looking for, hey, I want to participate in that kind of bounty hunter game at Galaxy's Edge and so forth. And once they kind of have done that and see that it's not necessarily what they were expecting or hoping it would be, that's also going to affect perception around these things as well.
See, not 100%. Me. See, I mean, I couldn't really get into that bounty hunter game bullshit. Just put in the Mandalorian and Grogu meet and greets and do something of that nature, and we'll be all hunky dory.
Well, and that's the thing that's funny. And I love Disney so much, but man, sometimes they completely step over $1 to pick up a dime. Like you have the fans, and we've talked about this like so much on this show. You literally have fans begging you to get rid of the timeline, to bring in these characters, to open it up, right? And we're finally now starting to see that after the land's been open for 3 years. And it's like, but all the gimmicky stuff is like rolled out constantly. Like, just do what people are asking for. Can you just do that? And then, and it's always the gimmicks. It's always the gimmicks. So I don't know. You're on mute, buddy.
It's really annoying. Thank you. Sorry about that. It's really annoying how that's really annoying too, but it's really annoying how the things that people want are either put behind a paywall or just not done at all. And I think there's really I think there is really monetizing opportunities there, but like the Legends of Frontierland, for example.
Yeah.
That was one of the kind of the best integrations of kind of interactivity and kind of these kind of in-park games that I've ever seen. People really got into it. They got an enthusiastic response from those tests. People were expecting a version of that. I mean, that was really the test version of it for its integration in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge proper, and we never got that. And I mean, if these bands are a path forward to something like that, then I would be like, okay, now you got something here. But in its current iteration, its current form, it's just not there. And when it comes to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, as a result, it's not necessarily capitalized as the land that I think people were expecting. So it's frustrating and disheartening.
Well, and I think we talked about this too, Dre, on the phone the other day, where if people actually a lot of the problem with a lot of these games, like the Bounty Hunter game and like the scanning game that premiered with Galaxy's Edge years ago, like you scan the crates and all that, they're okay, but I think people want like tangible stuff they can like win or obtain. There was a game, the Adventureland Trading Post or something to that effect years ago. I think it was like in 2014, and it was basically what this was, for those of you that don't remember, it was basically like a scavenger hunt through Adventureland, and I think it included Trader Sam's. Yeah. And you'd have to like decode certain things on like the Indiana Jones Adventure attraction and play all these really cool like little mini games, and each game you would win one of these. Right? There's a tiki bird, there's a snake, there's the Eye of Mara, the piranha from the Jungle Cruise. They got the Tarzan treehouse, this cool looking like almost like Thai looking elephant. Looks really dope. It's really cool stuff. And I have a few of these at home. They're actually sitting behind me on my wall, but they're really nice quality and they're dope. And I was into it because I wanted to get these things. They look really, really cool. I think if Disney incorporated more stuff like these games, like in Galaxy's Edge and what have you, where you can actually get like a real item, like a real tangible item at the end of the game, I think they'd be far more popular. People would be far more into it. But just a score on your phone, it's kind of like, okay, who cares? I'm at Disneyland. Right. I'd rather ride rides and do something. I don't want to do that. That
is the that is these. That's the main. What is it? Mark against the NFTs, right? These kind of digital tokens, right? People want tangible things, especially when they're in a theme park environment. They're looking for tangible, assets or physical things that they can kind of that are memorable and they're visually stunning. I would say in a theme park context specifically, I mean, people are looking for this kind of tangible items. And the adventures, what would you say? It was the adventures in Adventureland or the this kind of Adventureland game. Those items were awesome. And from what I understand, going into a little bit of research on that game, I believe you had to do it like it was like $5 a thing or whatever. This kind of nominal fee that kind of paid for the item itself, but you had to work out these kind of mini games in order to get these, in order to receive these items. And I think something like that, even if it's kind of an extra cost feature, at least there's something tangible. There's something like this amazing kind of physical token that you actually get. It's just some of the rewards are just, it doesn't make worth playing, to your point, OG. And I think Disney, there are even examples of Disney's past and Disney's history of them doing a successful iteration of these things.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so we move on to the Disney Wish. Let's talk about the new cruise ship. Now, I am honestly, full disclosure, I am not an expert on the cruises at all. I will be going on my first Disney cruise, though, in November, which I cannot wait to do. But I am not very knowledgeable on this at all. Our good friend George here, though, is. He's very knowledgeable on it. And Vash, you know quite a bit about this stuff as well. Have you been on a Disney cruise yet, Vash, or not yet?
I have not. And I probably, unfortunately, never will be able to get the chance simply because of the cost. It's very expensive. But from what I understand, anybody who's actually been on Disney Cruise absolutely raves about it. I mean, they are really known for their exceptional quality in terms of not only just your experiences, but the service and so forth. I mean, it's truly, from what I understand, it's second to none, even when compared to the parks. People say, hey, if you like what you have experienced at the parks, maybe in prior years, maybe in like the 70s and 60s, you can get that same quality or level of service on the cruise line. I mean, that's how high they rate these things.
And even more, I would say, especially, because it's almost like with the cruise line, you kind of, you're subdued to one ship, a set full of people. So you get a lot of one-on-one time with the cast members. Like when you do the rotational dining, you have the same waiter or waitress, or actually wait staff. You actually have like 2 or 3 wait staff cast members that serve you with the rotational dining, that depending on how many nights that you're on the cruise ship, you will rotate restaurants per night. There's usually 3 signature restaurants per ship.
Right.
And then if you're on, say, a 7-night Caribbean cruise, you will double back on some of those restaurants, but the menus will be different.
Yes.
And some of the experiences will be different, such as for Pirate Night, you may go into Royal Palace, but the menu will be featured with the pirate-esque menu with Captain Jack Sparrow and like a lot of seafood and what have you. So cool. You get a different experience each night depending on the theme of what's going on with the ship, or even if you're going on one of the specialty cruises like Star Wars Day at Sea, Marvel Day at Sea, or the new Pixar Day at Sea. So, they incorporate a lot of activities depending on which cruise you're taking. As far as now talking about the Wish, now I have to say, being that I've been on 7 Disney cruises myself, that if anyone was to say, well, go on a Disney cruise, I'm there, no matter which one it is, the Disney Fantasy, the Wish, Dream, Magic, or the Wonder, or the next 2 that are coming out after the Wish.
Dang, so you're a gold flyer there, or a gold...
Right now, I'm silver. I think you got to hit...
Oh, you're still
10.
Silver?
Yeah, you got to hit 10.
You got to hit 10. Okay. Yeah. I thought it was 10. I heard it was 5, and I was like, that's not right. I think it's 10.
3 off. I'm so close.
That is quite a distinction, George. Jeez, I did not know that.
Yes, and so, yeah, actually, my last cruise that I've done, unfortunately, was 2018. It's been 4.5 years, and I miss it. I really do. But I digress. My thing with the Wishes, and it started back with the concept art, even before the ship was fully built. The style, the type of Art Deco, so to speak, where it doesn't have the same look as the other 4 previous ships. And I get it. They don't want to repeat themselves. They want something different. But the style of the interior of the ship kind of resembles, and Vash and I were having this conversation, it kind of resembles to me of the hotel that was supposed to be going in the place of Downtown Disney that never was. It kind of had that very chic, upscale, glitzy, glamour type look. But the only difference is the Wish has incorporated a lot more Disney into that style.
Yes. That's... Look, I would even go one step beyond George. I think what I'll say about the Wish is, in comparison to that hotel that we were maybe going to receive at the Disneyland Resort, the kind of the infamous 4th hotel now, that was canceled. That was very modern, very sleek. Yeah. This one, I would say, the Wish is a little bit more modern than some of the other ones for sure. They've kind of dropped the Art Deco style and have gone with this kind of I don't know, modern fantasy, chic fantasy, if you want to call it. It's kind of its own thing. And I will say with you, George, I mean, look, the previous Art Deco style, I understand it was kind of going out of fashion, right? That it's not maybe the most up to date, architectural style out there, or theme out there, right? But it was kind of, harbinging back to it. And I haven't gotten this confirmed. I was kind of trying to do some research on it, but I didn't get this confirmed. But it seemed to me that the previous vessels, in terms of their design and aesthetic quality, were kind of inspired by it was the Queen Mary over there in Long Beach, because you'll know that when Disney originally acquired the Jack Rather organization in order to gain full access to the Disneyland hotels, right? The Disneyland hotel name previously couldn't be used by Disney because Walt organized this kind of a system to give the Rather company, his friend Jack Rather, a 99-year lease to the name for all hotels in the Southern California market. Well, obviously they had to rectify that, so they acquired the Jack Rather organization, and what they got was the Spruce Goose and the Queen Mary in that arrangement. And that's why those talks of them maybe doing something in Long Beach actually came up, was because they already had some assets there. So it seemed to me that it really kind of, the original design of the interior of these vessels kind of harkened back to those designs for the Queen Mary itself. And so there's some history there. And so when I saw the kind of the new version of the lobby or atrium or whatever, I was a little bit sad. But I was like, okay, maybe it could work. On final execution, I don't know. It might not have been done to the highest caliber it possibly could have been done.
So what
that.
What you're saying, Dre, is
that is one big pile of shit.
You know what, Ian Malcolm, you said it, not me, but I don't disagree with you necessarily. It's just, it feels a little processed. It feels a little too streamlined. It feels a little phony, fake. Yeah. Whereas the previous style of the Art Deco style and the previous atriums featured a lot of like embellishments, a lot of luxurious design work, and gilding and crown moldings and different hardwoods, a mixture of different styles for its railings and for some of its kind of metallic and wooden embellishments. There was a lot of craftsmanship there. This is so streamlined. It's so just
IKEA?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a little IKEA. It's a little bit. What's the terminology? It's a little just fake.
It's. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go back to what I said about the Star Cruiser when they open up the doors. It's like Macy's. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It has like that Macy's, J.C. Penney, bright. I don't know. It's
trying to be chic. It's trying to be luxurious. It's trying to be well themed, but it doesn't quite get there. And this is kind of why I wanted to bring up a conversation on the Wish at all, because there were so many aspects of this vessel, as hearing reviews from a multitude of different sources, that kind of indicated to me, it kind of harkened back to a conversation we've actually had before, OG, and of course with you, George, of things in the Chapek era, these new attractions, these new lands, and now these new vessels, I guess. It's always like 80% there. And I think, OG, you've made this point multiple times. It's always just shy of being perfect. We've seen this with kind of Avengers Campus and how it's like, oh, it's good, but it could use a little work. Or Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, right? Great land, great bones, right? But it needs just a little bit more in order to be considered one of the best lands ever to be made by the Disney company. We just see this pattern kind of over and over again, and for it to kind of affect the Wish in this way is kind of it's heartbreaking to see.
Well, and we did talk about that, and it's true, and we're really fair to Chapek on this channel, but that is one thing about his kind of tenure, both at running the parks and even now into CEO, where these park things feel very 80%, like you said, Dre, like very like Avengers Campus is a great example of like, it's a quality land. It's not like totally cheap, like a Paul Pressler era thing, but it's not Galaxy's Edge either. It's not 100%. It needs that e-ticket. It needs another element to really make it like a whole piece. And that's kind of what I'm feeling here with the Wish and just a lot of stuff. Even like Cosmic Rewind could have used maybe like an animatronic, a little bit to really put it up, like just, you know, and that.
I will say though, as a defense to Cosmic Rewind, it would have been much better with the Groot and Rocket animatronics. Yeah. But I promise you fellas this, the second you sit down on that thing and you experience the coaster, so worth it.
Nice. No, I've heard amazing things. I don't think I've heard one negative thing about that attraction. Like everyone that gets off that thing loves it. Absolutely loves it.
Now, I did want to bring up the fact, because Dre, you had mentioned this earlier before the recording, that they kind of use specific space, just kind of like fill-ins. And actually, as you were mentioning that, it did dawn on me that the Disney Wish has 2 movie theaters, and it's the only one that has 2. The rest just have Buena Vista Theater.
But now, Buena Vista Theater is that like a flex space where they can have movies and stage shows?
No. Buena Vista Theater is only for movies.
Okay.
The Walt Disney Theater is where they hold the Broadway style productions. Now, with the Wish, what I find that interesting, and I really couldn't put my foot on it of why they did this, but now that you mentioned it and brought it to light, I think that's kind of interesting. They have 2 movie theaters. You only need one. Those movie theaters don't get packed. They have Neverland and Wonderland, which is cool. They kind of themed the movie theaters to that. But it made me think of, why do they need 2? Well, now, being that you just made that statement before the recording, they couldn't really think of anything to put in that space, so why not throw in another movie theater?
It is really interesting. We saw this from multiple reviewers, not just those just pertaining to the Diz Twitter community or whatever, but we saw some even journalists kind of say, I know Scott Gooston was one of them and some others who kind of frequent this kind of theme park space, that they were saying that there was a lot of wasted space here. Not only that, but a lot of the space was dedicated to these kind of upcharge experiences. Now, where have we heard that from? Maybe, I don't know, from the parks division, right? Or from the theme parks themselves. It's just a lot of different spaces dedicated to, like here's an exclusive bar and you're obviously going to pay per drink, or in some cases for the beignets that are on order, which is a bizarre kind of thing. It's like, wow, why wouldn't you just include those and have people pay for drinks,
or have a $5,000 drink?
Right. Yeah, or a $5,000 drink with a $900 gratuity automatically added, which is just unbelievably bizarre, right? It's the drink is only a portion of the actual experience, right? Of course, now we know from everybody who was asking about it, now we know that it includes a trip for 4 to Skywalker Ranch. Which even that is, I heard is you don't get full access, you only get partial access. Okay, whatever. But should there be a $900 gratuity automatically applied to that if what you're paying for is some other experiences that maybe your server might not be able to partake in at all? It's a very kind of bizarre thing. And even that space where that drink is ordered from, I believe it's is it the Hyperspace Lounge?
It's the Hyperspace Lounge.
Okay. Sorry, I'm gonna be really bad at the names here, folks. I'm still trying to get used to this kind of stuff myself. But the Hyperspace Lounge, even that space was very relatively unthemed.
Again, it kind of because I do want to hear what you have to say. But when I saw the Hyperspace Lounge, it just kind of harkened back to Galaxy's Edge. It's like you have a shell of Star Wars, but where's the meat to the bones?
I didn't think Galaxy's Edge. Galaxy's Edge to me is very well themed. I was thinking more about Star Cruiser, which is not quite as well themed as maybe big portions of Galaxy's Edge is. I mean, it looked like literally a room with no windows with a screen that you can kind of look out on, and apparently you're supposed to be hyperspace jumping to all these different places. But I mean, it was relatively unthemed. Now, there is a spot on the ship for kids that is extremely well themed, and it relates to Star Wars and so forth. That I was very impressed with.
I was actually more impressed for the kids. the kids
Yes.
space had better quality than the adults, and I get it, it is for the kids, but sometimes you're just like, screw them, I want the experience too. It's like, you know, I'm the one forking out the money.
Little
It's like,
Johnny's not forking out $12,000 here. Where are the stuff for the adults here? And that was kind of the weird thing too. The adult spaces were even very cramped, and the adult pool was, you know, it's at the complete rear of the ship, and it's very small, so everybody was there and congregating around. It was just, there are some bizarre choices with this ship, and a lot of emphasis on kind of light theming and these kind of or wasted space, like in the form of OG. You can go ahead and share my screen right here just to give people an example.
I know exactly what you're going to bring.
This kind of, I don't know, it's supposed to be like this flex space, but they just have this kind of I don't know, this, you know, a rental inflatable that you can get at some, you know, kind of quinceañera or birthday party or whatever. It's a very, look, hey, look, listen, gotta harken back to my Mexican roots at some point, right? But it's a very kind of weird thing. It's like, I'm sorry, this trip is thousands and thousands of dollars, and you're dedicating this a humongous space to stuff like this, and you can actually see a basketball hoop up there. So like I said, this is supposed to be kind of a flex area, and then you get areas that are just not even themed at all. Let me see if I can go ahead and get to that. Yeah, this area just right adjacent to that room that we just saw features a space like this. And I'm going to have to go ahead and give credit to Theme Park Express for this video right here that I'm pulling these images from. But it was just kind of like, what is going on here? Why dedicate so much finite space that you have on a cruise ship to basically nothing? While the activities and people and things that people want to experience get so little room relatively. It's very strange.
Well, even if the room is bare, you know, you could still theme it to something, because there is a lot of rooms on the other ships that a lot of people don't go into. You know, they may pass it to get to another part of the ship or what have you, but every room that you pass through on the Magic, the Wonder, the Dream, and the Fantasy is themed to something. It may not necessarily be about Disney, but it's themed well, and it complements the past room than what you're going into the next room. Whether you're in midship, aft, what have you, you get all that detail that you could even, you know, they have those interactive games like with the Muppets or with Mickey, and you have to kind of catch the Disney villain, where you have to kind of be a detective on the ship and everything, where with the Wish, it just seems like they're just kind of throwing different random stuff in it just to fill in the ship. And you had mentioned, Vash, again before the recording, that it's almost like they ran out of time, that they wanted to have a deadline. They just wanted to get it up and running. You know, the cruise line has been shut down for longer than the parks, and they're still struggling further beyond the parks. So it's like they just had to get it up operation wise, and they just had to put something in it.
Well, I'm gonna make you guys nauseous right now on what could have been. What could have been. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this concept. I think this actually predates the Disney cruises completely. I think this is a concept under the Michael Eisner era that was kind of like a floating theme park.
Is it that freaking Little Mermaid style looking thing that kind of like, it's like all colors?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
This was a converted oil tanker, right?
Okay.
That they would place a theme park on, and it would come into port, and they would hire the local populace, and they would play to, you know, whatever port city it was actually docked to for like a couple of, I think, weeks or months. I do remember reading about this quite extensively. This was a crazy concept.
Look at you basically a Ferris wheel here. They have like the Astro Orbiter up here.
Yes.
Over here they have like their version of it's a cross between the castle and Small World.
Yep.
I mean, this is absolutely insane. This is something that would be really, really cool if Disney really got ambitious right now and said that we're going to build this thing. I would love to see something like this, you know?
The idea behind this concept, this is a very kind of interesting piece because they were really considering this as OG's bringing up. This is the model that they were working off of. And the idea was, well, instead of taking a risk with something like a Paris and have it maybe necessarily flopping, why don't you have a floating theme park that you could port in various cities and various locales, along these various coastlines here, hire the local populace, and now you have kind of this, temporary theme park where it can go in, it can dock with a various country. That hey, maybe the weather is not great at certain parts of the year, but it is good at this portion of the year where you want a theme park open. Well, you just kind of dock right there, and instead of kind of investing into a country and dealing with local politics, you can just have this kind of floating concept right there. It was actually kind of an ingenious move, to be honest.
It was, and it almost kind of would set the stage. They can kind of almost test global markets for potential permanent theme parks this way. So, for example, you can dock in Australia. Let's say you dock at Sydney, right? And if it does really well in Sydney, then you can almost kind of draw up plans for maybe a permanent theme park in Australia because there's a market there because the floating theme park did well over there. You can go to port and kind of see, okay, which countries have a taste for this, which countries don't, and it will actually sort of reduce the risk in terms of building these theme parks. The permanent ones on land beforehand because you're testing it out with this thing.
Right. But remember, because something this kick-ass, can't happen.
It can't.
It's just too good.
And the idea was you take an oil tanker, right, or maybe like a shipping container vessel, right, and you convert it into a theme park because they can hold tremendous amounts of weight, and you really kind of build these things up and out. And to your point, OG, I mean, Disney theme parks are, notorious for being 365 days of operation, right? They're 365 day kind of things there whenever they set up in a various country. Well, one of the things that kind of hurts Paris is that it snows there. The weather is not that great in the wintertime and so forth. And so that kind of hurts attendance. Well, what if you could have like this floating theme park concept go into port during one of these kind of inclement weather type events and see whether people show up? See, if there's kind of an appetite for this, not just for the better months of the year, but maybe for 365, maybe when it wouldn't be necessarily great to have a theme park. And if there is really an appetite for these things during those kind of cold weather months and so forth, hey, maybe there's a market for a more permanent operation there. So it was a fascinating idea. Like it really was. And there's some information about this out there, but that was the precursor to what we got, which was the Disney Cruise Line. And so it's, and apparently they were going to have dark rides there. I heard about maybe talk of maybe a Star Tours or maybe a take on Indiana Jones Adventure for this kind of thing. It was the whole
would have been the limit. And with each ship, you can add different kinds of attractions.
Yes.
And so this ship might have, Small World, Pirates, and Space Mountain. The next ship they build, though, might have like Indiana Jones or like a truncated version of it, Mr. Toad,
or they could actually kept like to the theme. Like one ship could have just been like based off of Animal Kingdom. Another ship could have been just based off of Epcot and Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and cool. Maybe if you have a fleet of these things, maybe two of them come into port, and now you have different lands or experiences that way. If you have to have these things refurbished, well, maybe you can get, I don't know, maybe you can do a deal with a shipyard that you can take these things into, and now you can go ahead and work on these things while still having other vessels available. I mean, it was a kind of a very, man, it was really an outrageous concept, and it went pretty far along. And well, unfortunately, Michael Eisner got a little bit of cold feet, and they went into more of a traditional direction where they did advance. I think the cruise line industry, but not as much.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Absolutely fascinating stuff. Guys, I want to thank you both, brothers. Thank you so much for coming on today. We talked about a lot today. Today was a stacked show. We talked about the Wish. We talked a lot about Tiana Bayou Adventure. We talked a lot about MagicBand Plus and how that's all like a gimmick and just a bunch of stuff. D23 Expo, which I mean, I cannot wait for that because I think, like George and Ali always say, the expo. I think I'm starting to get on that train. I think this is going to be a big one. I don't want to get too hyped because I've been stood up at the altar before when it comes to the expo.
It's a very good way of doing it, right? Very good way of saying it right there. I like that. But it's the D23 Expo. That's what it really is.
Exactly. But I want to thank you guys so much for coming on as always. I'll start with you, Mr. Freshly Squeezed, Dr. Dre. If you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Hey, best place to interact with me if you want to go ahead and do so right down there at Vash Sky. Go ahead and type in the Twitters. I should pop up for all the, as Christine Waysines McCarthy would say,
for all the robust
discussion. You can go ahead and do so right down there. And if you want to go ahead and see me, well, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now at Orange Grove 55 at Freshly Squeezed. Your source for juicy news and info squeezed fresh. Just squeeze it right from the Grove.
There we go. And hold on one sec. We got to drop this one too.
But really, nothing
There it
compares
is.
with a freshly squeezed.
Nothing
go.
compares.
Shout out to Mr.
Ooh,
Adam.
I have to say that when you just said like squeeze it, it made my knees buckle.
Nice, George. Nice.
And that was a great segue. If you could let everybody at home know, George, where they can find you on social media.
Of course. Well, by that statement, I am the Disney Family Man. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. If you want to interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. And of course, you can find me here on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with a lot of sweet, juicy, but yet sticky Disney news and info.
Perfect. So I want to thank both of you for coming on, and I want to thank everybody for watching. Today was a really, really fun show. Comment down below with all your thoughts on everything we talked about. Really stacked show, a lot to chew on here. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.